Hello and welcome to another Vista tips and tricks video. This is going to be part 2 in a small series looking at how to update your show file. In the last video we looked at presets and using them as reference presets in our queues to update later. We also looked at effects and labeling our effects with the group that was used when we built them so we can quickly update all of our blocking and repeats within our effects. And we looked at saving our selection orders in those groups for updating later. We also built a small queue list, as you can see here, and this basically represents the show that you have that you want to update. We'll be aiming to replicate these looks and these queues on a different stage with a different rig and different lights. And I've also added in a few extra little bits to this queue list. Just to kind of show how updating can really save you time. So we've got some quite specific stuff here. So we have a kind of vocal preset here, and we also have a kind of guitar solo preset here as well. And these are kind of things that you definitely want to make sure that you're getting right from venue to venue as you're touring, or in a theatrical show you want to make sure that all your spots are hitting the right places, etc. So I put these in to kind of simulate that kind of cue where it needs to be very precise. And the next thing we're going to look at is kind of like the final touches of what you might want to do before you take your show file from one venue to another. And it's something I like to call an update queue list, which is basically a checklist. And what we do is we put everything into this queue list that needs updating for our show, and we go through it, and once we get to the end of that queue list, we know for sure that everything that needed to be updated has been updated. So it's kind of a quick way to go through and make sure that your show file is ready to go. So that's what we're going to be looking at next. So now we're going to look at building our update queue list, or our checklist for our show. And all this is a queue list that contains all of our presets and all of the items that we want to make sure are working and pointing in the right direction, in the right color, etc. And to do this, I like to do it kind of fixture type by fixture type, or you can do it truss by truss. It really doesn't matter. But what we're going to do is we're going to use our highlight tool, select our first group of fixtures, and simply select the presets that we want to check. So the first thing I'm going to check is my position presets for my tilt home and my pan home. These presets, these first two rows of presets, are what I call split presets. So the first row only contains tilt information, and the second row only contains pan information. And I do this when busking, but I also find it useful when programming normally as well. If you want to have a look at how to create these, you can check out my Busking with Vista series, and I go through in great detail how to build these kind of presets and store them, etc. And then this third row here are presets that are specific to certain areas of the stage. So we have like our lead vocal and our guitar one, and kind of like a 50-50 straight out look. But we're going to be looking at our home position. So I'm going to select both tilt and both pan for this. Again, what you need to update will be kind of to do with your show. So this is just an example, but I'll type in pan/tilt home, and then I'll select my washes as well, and I will do the same for them. So now they're homed, and any other moving fixture that I have. Now the reason I put all of my fixtures into this one, if it's a shared preset like this, I will do them first, and then I'll do any presets for just fixtures that are on their own. The reason I do shared presets first is because later on when I'm updating, I can just select my lights, and then I can tab through them to make sure that they're updated correctly. So I will create another queue, and we'll call this one mid-stage. Grab my lights, click mid-stage. And it's as simple as just going through creating queues, and then selecting the presets that you want to update in them. Once we've done that, I will then go to a preset that's easy to kind of adjust my pan settings from. So I'll probably choose something like my downstage position, because now I can see all of my pan presets working correctly. But again, this can be done in any order that is kind of works for you and works for your rig. Again, you might want to do it truss by truss, by location, by fixture type, whatever. Now, this process isn't exactly fun, but it is quick, and obviously if you have lots and lots of presets it will take you slightly longer, but it's something that is really worth doing, because once it's done you never have to do it again, and when you get to a new venue it's just such a nice way to know that when you get to the end of this queue list everything is what you need it to be. So even though it's not the most exciting thing to be doing, it is something I think is worth doing. And then the last one, guitar 1. So guitar 1 only has my spots in it. So I can either leave my washes in this, but I will just home them in this queue and select my spots for this. But I'll do all of my kind of combined global presets first, and then I'll do my more specific ones afterwards. But again, you can do it in any order. So now I have all of my position presets done. You can go ahead and do the same for color, and the same for beam, and the same for gobo, and anything else that you might want to check. I'm going to stop now with just positions for time reasons, so I can get on and show you how this works later on. But yeah, if you want to make sure that all of your fixtures are color matching with the in-house fixtures, definitely do a list for color as well. If you want to make sure that the zoom ranges are all kind of in the same kind of percentage for each fixture, especially if you're trying to match them with a different fixture type, again, do some for zoom as well. But this is literally just a checklist. As you can see, as we go through, we can just make sure that everything is pointing in the right place where we need it to be. So when we do this list again in our new venue, we can just rattle through it, make any changes that we need to, update it, update the preset, and that means that all of our queues in all of our lists will be updated as well with those new positions or new colors or new beam presets. So that's kind of how to make a checklist. I'm going to go quickly to queue list properties and just call this one check list or update list or whatever you want to call it, and then release it and close it. So now we have created our show in our venue. We have created our reference presets. We have labeled our groups and our selection orders. We have labeled our effects. We've created a checklist. We are ready to take the show into a new venue and update it. Now, the last thing you want to do before you go to a new venue, or something that I like to do, is to make sure that you go into patch, and if you're touring a ground package and they're always going to be going out in the same places, and they're always going to be going on the same DMX lines, and they're always going to be at the same address, obviously don't unpatch anything. Don't unpatch anything that is always going to be the same in every venue. So again, if you have a ground package, you don't need to unpatch it and repatch it every time because those addresses will be the same. If you're taking no lights to the new venue, and that's what we'll be doing, so we're going to be just taking our show but merging it into whatever rig we're given. So again, if you have a busking show file, or if you are touring a theatre show, or even a rock and roll show, and you're just using whatever rigs people have, then I would suggest the last thing you do is to actually take everything out of patch. So when you plug in your DMX lines to the next venue, not everything immediately fires up and goes crazy, because even with no lights on, things like pan and tilt and zoom will still be sending their kind of like zeroed values. So I like to start from a completely blank slate in patch. I've got 4 universes that I'm working with here, so I've unpatched all of them. But obviously, like I said, only unpatched stuff that you know you are not going to be using in the next venue in the same place. So now we're going to go to our new venue. This is our old venue. We have a couple of trusses for the movers that we're using, some LED buttons on SCAF, and a row of movers at the back. So this is what we've been working with, but in our new venue, if I just open this up, we have a different rig. So as you can see, our trusses have moved around. We actually have different fixtures altogether as well. So we now have Viper Air Effects and Roby 150 LED beams, and our battens have actually changed from LED battens to sun strips. So we've obviously tried to keep our band in a similar position, but in this venue our lights have changed, our trusses have changed. In fact, the amount of lights have changed as well. We've actually gained fixtures. So this is where all that preparation will really come in handy, because not only do we have to update our rig to get it working to produce the same looks, we're updating it into completely different fixtures. We're updating it into more fixtures in some cases, and we're also updating it into different fixture types altogether. So this part of the video is kind of the bit we've all been waiting for. I'm now going to show you how to take all of that data, merge it into this new rig, so you don't have to sit there and reprogram whole chunks of your show, and you don't have to reprogram and copy and paste information because you have more lights to play with, and you don't have to worry about losing information because you're using different fixture types. Okay, so how do we know what we need to update into what? So basically the whole aim of the game is to try and replicate the looks and the cues you had in the first venue, and get them looking as similar as possible in the second venue. So you want to kind of use that rule for everything. So obviously we want our cues to look the same and be as close as they can. So when we're thinking about updating fixtures and cloning and fixture swapping, we want to update our fixtures to similar types of fixtures that we have in the new venue. So our old venue fixtures consisted of 12 Axiom hybrids, so these are kind of our spot or beam fixtures. We had some Stark 1000 washes, so this is our LED wash fixture, and then our battens were some Color Force 72s, and this was our LED multi-celled fixture, and then we had some generic blinders as well. So we look at that and we go, okay, so I have a spot fixture here, and in my new venue they have Viper Air Effects. So I'm going to want to change these axioms into air effects because they are the closest spot fixture I have to the new spot fixture that's in the new venue. And then we have some 150 beams. Well, that's a wash fixture, or can be used as a wash fixture. So I'm going to clone or merge my washes into them. Now I have some sun strips. Now, obviously, my original fixtures were color 472s. They're an LED pattern. Sun strips aren't LED, but they're the closest thing I have to a multi-celled strip light. So I'm going to use my color 472s. Even though sun strips aren't LED, Vista will still update all of the dimming and dimming effects that I've used. And then my molds, my blinders, are basically a straight swap. So I'm going to go straight in and just use them as generic blinders. So this is kind of the first thing you want to look at. You want to look at your new rig, see what the closest or similar fixtures that they have that you have, and they're the fixtures you want to update. So let's do an example. So we're going to update our axioms and we're going to make them Viper Air FXs. So to do this, we're going to use something called fixture swapping. And it is as literal as it sounds. You're going to take your lights, you're going to select them, go into patch, right click, click change fixture type. You'll get a dialog box that looks very, very similar to the one that you used when you patched normally. You're going to search the new fixture that you want these axioms to be. So we want these axioms to be Mac Air Effects. They are going to be in their basic mode, and then we're going to hit OK. That other dialog box basically gives you a warning to say you're about to change these fixtures into different fixtures. If they're already patched and they're going to overlap, Vista will unpatch them for you because you don't want them to be conflicting in their addresses. So now these have changed to Viper Air FXs. But all of the programming that we had for our axioms is contained within these icons. So it doesn't matter what make or model or mode of fixture they are, all that programming still remains with these fixtures. And it doesn't matter where they're patched or what universe they're on. Each fixture contains the programming that we used in the last venue. So we haven't lost anything. All we've done is changed the fixture type. So now we've changed the fixture type to the new correct type. The next thing we want to look at is location and fixture amount. So in the new venue, we have a top truss, we have kind of a mid truss that's kind of broken up, and we have a floor package. Well, I can see I've got 4 Vipers on the top truss. So I'm going to take these top fixtures and they will become these 4 lights. I can see I've got a mid truss. Now on my original rig, I only had another 4 spots on my mid truss, but I've got 6 here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clone some fixtures that I already have to create more spots for myself that already contain all of the programming that I need for my show. And I'm going to clone in the closest thing to them. So I'm going to take this fixture and this fixture, which is this one and this one. I'm now going to go to patch, right click, and hit clone fixtures. I'm now given 2 new fixtures, but these 2 new fixtures have all of the programming of the ones I've just cloned them from. So I don't have to add them into every single cue list. I don't have to add them into presets. As you can see, they already reference them. These are fixtures that are already ready to go. So now I have the correct amount. I have 6 fixtures on the second truss. Now, my floor package, I have 4 at the back, just as I did before, but I've also got kind of 4 more mid-stage. So again, I'm going to clone the closest thing to them. So I'm going to take the 4 at the back, go to patch, right click, go to clone fixtures, and from the 4 at the back, I'm going to clone in 4 at the front. So now I have the correct fixture type, I have the correct amount, and I also have them laid out as I want them on my screen. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to patch them. So for ease of use, I've patched these basically going left to right from top to bottom. Obviously refer to any kind of documentation you have to patch them. Quick note, the order in which you select your fixtures on your fixture chooser will also be the order in which you drag them into your patch. So this can be useful if something is patched kind of the wrong way around. You can literally just select it in the right order, drag it out of patch, and then drag it back in, and it will be patched in the right order. Okay, so now we can take these lights, patch them into Universe 1, and then check that they're correct. So we can go to Live, and then use our highlight tool, and now we can check that we have successfully grabbed all of our air effects. So now what we have to do is exactly the same for the rest of our fixtures. So same principle, we are going to go and do our washes next. So we're going to grab our washes. I'm going to change them all into 150 beams. We're going to check the mode. Mode 2. So, and I know these are going to be patched in Universe 2, so I'm going to right click here, change fixture type, row B, 150 beam, and they're in mode 2. Hit OK, hit OK, and now I'm going to check the fixture count. So again, top row, I'm going to use these guys. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 that we've already got. I'm going to use these. And I like to go from the center of my rig as well. But then we've got 2 more each side as well. So I'm simply going to select all 4 of these and then clone them. And then these are now a direct clone. So I'm going to take these 2, put them this side, take these 2, put them this side. Same principle for my center washes. I've got 4 in the middle here, but now I've got 4 each side. So what I'm going to do, again, take these, clone them. This is going to be my first 4. And then clone them again. Now the idea behind this is obviously to get them as close to what you want them to be doing. So you only have to make minor tweaks later on, rather than having to update whole queues, whole presets, whole groups of fixtures. You can just make smaller tweaks than you would have had to do without this method. Now our ground package, again, we have 4 in the middle and an extra 2 each side. So I'm going to grab my 4 in the middle from my ground package, clone them, and then 2 each side. And again, I know that they're patched left to right, top to bottom in Universe 2. So I'm going to select them in that order, drag them to Universe 2, and with highlight on, go into Live, and I can see that I have them. Now, next thing I'm going to do are my sun strips. So for this, I'm going to grab my LED buttons and I'm going to take them out of the matrix. And I'm just going to move this out of the way for now. And we're going to turn these into sun strips. So just as before, select the fixtures you want to change. check where they're going. So these are going to go onto my universe 3 in their 10 channel mode. So I'm going to right click, change fixture type, go to sun strip, 10 channel mode, and hit OK. Hit yes. And you can see they have now changed from a 12-cell LED batten to a 10-cell sun strip. And just as before, all we have to do now is look at where they are in relation to each other on the LX plan or the rig. Again, you could be doing this sat in front of the real rig. So we've got 4 at the top. Now, because I like to work symmetrically and from top to bottom, what we'll do is we'll grab these 4, clone them, and we'll move them to the top. The next row has 6, and we already have 6 here, so we'll use these as our center row. And then we have 6 on the floor, so that's quite easy as well. We simply grab them, clone them, and we have 6 on the floor. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to patch them in order. So I'm going to select them in the order I want to drag them into patch, universe 3, and then drag them in. And again, just to test, we'll go to live, and I can see I have all of my sun strips. Now, obviously, when we clone them in, they will clone in as they would if they would just been patched. So these aren't orientated in the right direction yet. So what we can do is we can make sure they are orientated correctly. So what I like to do is select top pixel and the bottom pixel. So I know that this is the bottom and this is the top. So that is how I'm going to spin them. So I'm just going to grab all of these, right click, go to items, go to rotate, grab the little handle and rotate them. And then to get them spaced out, select them top to bottom, and then use arranging grid, selection order, and 1 row. So now I know I've got them in the right order. Same again, top to bottom, right click, arranging grid, 1 row, and then select selection order down here. And then I know they're correct. Last thing to do with these is to put them back in a matrix. And we want to put them back in as close as we can to what we have in our rig. So we're going to go back to our plot view, take a look, grab our matrix, expand this, and then start filling them in. So let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we can move them over where we need them. Then we have a row of 6, so we'll do a row of 6 underneath, somewhere like that. Just nudge them over. And then our last row of 6. So we'll drop them in and we'll just mirror these for now. Again, with matrices, you can lay them out in any way you want. So you can have them matching identically, or you can have them kind of an approximate match like I've done here. It's really up to you, so don't be afraid to kind of just like mess around with it. So the nice thing about matrices, as soon as you've put all your fixtures in, this will be how the effect runs over them. So if you want to change it, it's as simple as moving it around. I'm just going to resize that back down so we're kind of equal on all sides, and that'll do. So the last thing I'm going to be doing is my blinders. So just as before, I already have the right fixture type, so I don't actually have to change these, but I'm just going to look at the fixture amount. So we have 4 on the top truss and 6 on the bottom. So I already have 6 here, but I don't need 2 of these. So you have a couple of options here. What you can do is you can just keep the ones you're not going to be using out of patch, so just in this area down here. They're still in the show, they're still programmed, but obviously they won't be seen by anybody, or you can delete them if they're not needed. So I'm just going to delete them, then grab them in the order I want them patched and drag and drop them. Again, just check that they're correct. Yep. So now we have all of our fixtures patched in the right modes, with the right amounts, in the right places. We're almost ready to go. But now we have to make sure that they are working correctly and as intended. So the first thing I'll do is update any groups that I have. So for my spots, again, I have a linear and a mirrored. I have a linear wash and a mirrored wash. I have a linear batten and a linear blinder. So what I'm going to do is simply select my spots, including the new fixtures in the order that I want, hold down my yellow modify key or control, and tap the group I want to update. Then I'm going to do the same for my mirrored selection in the order that I want them to be selected and I want them to work, and tap my mirrored. And then I'm going to do this for every fixture type that I have. And this is kind of the first step you want to do, because as we have labeled our effects with the groups that we used to build them, we want to make sure that our groups are updated properly. So that our effects update correctly as well. So groups are kind of like the first thing to do after you have fixture swapped and cloned. Now we're going to look at the offset of our fixtures. This is kind of a little kind of prequel step before we start looking at the content of our show file, just to make sure that the position that they are hung in is correct, to make sure that if we have to reverse any panning or tilt information in patch first, because a fixture might be programmed to have a reverse tilt or reverse pan actually on the fixture. So you want to go through your rig and basically zero it, get it to where you want it to be before you start updating anything. Okay, so to use offset to zero our rig, simply select some lights. So I'm going to use my spots, use highlight to give them some intensity, and then select a preset that you know should work. So it's advisable that you use a preset that contains both pan and tilt information. So I'm going to use my downstage preset for my tilt information, and then I'm going to use my fan out preset for my pan information. Now obviously in the old rig, this brought my lights forwards and fanned them out nicely. But in this new rig, they're pointing off to the side and kind of fanning all over the place. And that's because these lights have a different pan and tilt home to my last fixtures, and also they may be actually rigged on this truss in a completely different orientation. So to get the orientation of our fixtures correct, so it lines up with the presets that we already have, instead of updating our home position, because all that will do will update that one position, you will still have to then update everything else from this kind of wrong setting. We can go into Patch, go to Transforms, go to Advanced, then we can add anything that we need to offset or change to correct in this rig. So the first thing I'm going to start with is our pan channel. So I'm going to select pan, hit OK, and from here we can see that we have some options. The one we're interested in at the moment is this one here, offset. So this is supposed to be downstage and fanning out. So I'm going to grab these lights with the offset and then use my up and down arrow keys to change the way they are offset, the way they are pointing. So now I've got the pan offset at 34, but they are fanning in. So what this tells me is not only do I have to offset them to get the pan in the correct position, I also have to invert them, because if they're fanning in when they should be fanning out, that means that this set of fixtures is actually inverted, either in the fixture themselves or the way they're hung on the truss. So I'm going to click invert, but to get them back to where I need them, all I do is simply put a minus in front of my 34, and now I've got them downstage and fanning out. But my floor package is pointing in the wrong direction. So all I have to do now is, now that I know the inverted pan is correct, select my floor package. So I've got 8 lights down here, and then invert the tilt on these. So now I have my floor package downstage fanning out, and I have my rig package downstage fanning out. Now, because I know this is correct, I also know that the rest of my presets will be very, very close to what I need them to be. So updating becomes way easier. So as you can see, mid-stage, downstage, in audience, straight out and up, they have all worked. Fan in, fan out, cross in, cross out. My lead vocal is very close. My standard 50-50 is very close. And my lead guitar is very close. These will still need slight tweaks, but as you can see, using offset already gets all of my presets way, way closer to being correct than if I had just had to try and pull them in one by one from the natural offset of these lights. So I think my floor package also needs a little bit more tweaking on its pan channel, so I'm just going to select that again. You can also hold your red modify key and your shift key if you want fine control over your offset as well. So that's what I'm going to do here. So I'm just going to straighten these up. So I think that's better. Close, and then just check them with the rest of my rig by going, yeah, that looks great. So now all of my lights, all of my spots are offset correctly. So whereas before I walked into the venue and everything was pointing in the wrong place, and I haven't updated any of these presets, but now all of my presets, because of this offset, are kind of in working order or extremely close to in working order. So now all you do is the rest of your fixtures like this, any moving fixtures. So I'm going to clear, select my washes in the same way, and we're going to have a look at them. So now we're going to do exactly the same for our washes. So I'm just going to select my washes, use highlight again, and then just repeat the process. Go to transforms, go to advanced, make sure I've got a preset that I know works. So downstage and fan out again. As you can see, these are actually going the other way. So we have a different problem to solve this time. So we're going to go to our transforms, pull in the pan attribute, and again, use the offset to get them zeroed to where I need them. Now again, this should be fanning out, but it's fanning in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit invert, and then simply put a minus next to this to bring them back. And now I can see that they are indeed fanning out downstage. And again, I can close and have a look just to make sure that the rest of them are all working as I want them to. So maybe a little bit of updating required, but not very much. So after you have updated all of the pan and tilt information for your moving fixtures, we can also look at things like if anything has like an inverted zoom or the color calibration isn't right, and you can also use offsets for that. Offset and transforms, you can pull in basically any attribute that fixture has, and you can change the default values of them to get them closer to where you need them to be. So now we've done the pan and tilt for all of our moving fixtures. We can now go on to our checklist. So to do this, we're going to hit open, go to our checklist, fire the first cue, which is pan and tilt home, and then just use highlight and our groups to make sure everything is working correctly. So that's fine. We'll go down to mid stage. I can see that mid stage is fine for both. We'll go down to downstage again. That's fine for me. Then we can go to in audience. Yep. And yep. Then we can go to straight out to audience. That seems to be working. And then we have up. Yep. We've got fan in, fan out, cross in, cross out. And then just for my spots, we have lead vocal, and I'm just going to zoom these in a bit more to make sure that this is hitting correctly. And we can do this truss by truss, so that works. So this needs a little bit of updating. So we're just going to, and this is what this checklist is for, is just to make sure that the information you've got for these fixtures is indeed correct. So we're just going to update this truss. Just getting it looking a little bit better. Again, using offset will get you very close, but depending on trim heights, you might have to still do a little bit of tweaking. That's actually working okay. Just drop that a little bit. And these front ones are actually our new fixtures, so these will need tweaking. Very good. Just drop this one. Cool. Now once you have all of this now pointing in the right position, you can either go to the preset, lead vocal, and update it this way, or you can use the update button up here and just choose presets, and you can also go down to just the attribute you want as well. So I'm going to use update lead vocal to update that. Then 50/50 works, and then lead guitar. So that's actually pretty spot on. These need to be moved. So once again, simply just, again, because of the offset that we've done, these will already be quite close. So in fact, it's actually this one that just needs to move. That's okay, and then these two. maybe just this one, nudge it over. And then these will be fanning out. So that's perfect. So now we can go to guitar 1 and update that. Again, this list can carry on and you can do color and beam and gobo, etc. But once you have finished your checklist, you can simply close this, save and release, clear live, and now when we open our main cue list and hit go, you can see that our show, even though we've got different fixtures in different places, will be updated to match as closely as possible to what we had before. So now when we get to our effects, we can see that our matrix effects is actually updated fine because, like I said, once you put your fixtures in a matrix, they will work as intended. The effect will run across them in the way that they're laid out. So this effect is working fine, but my symmetrical circle isn't. But because in the last video we labeled our symmetrical circle with our group, so I can see symmetrical circle group 6. So I know that I have to update this with group 6. So all I do is select group 6, go to my smart effects, go to sequence, and then I just hit update. And now because I've hit update, my symmetrical circle works exactly as intended. And it's as simple as that. Simply go through your show, make sure all your effects are updated. So we'll carry on. Blind a moment, back to our verse, back to our preset, to our vocal, to our guitar solo. That effect looks fine. Blinders, and then out. So that's kind of it. Using all of these steps, you can go from one venue to another, even if your lights are in different positions, even if you're using different fixtures altogether, and you can update your show and your effects and your fixtures very quickly using these steps. So again, offset gets you very, very close. And then just going through that checklist will get you to where exactly you need to be. And then simply just going through your cue lists and making sure all of your effects are updated correctly and in running order. Again, using all of the prep that you did beforehand. So using all of the groups that you've labeled, the effects that reference those groups, the presets that are referenced in your show. And again, this is just one cue list in this show file, but if you had 30 cue lists, they would all update in the same way. So they would all update with the correct positioning, they would all update with the effects as you go through. So I hope this has been useful. If there's anything I haven't explained properly or you think I could do better, please leave a comment. Let me know if there's anything else you need me to cover. Again, go to the forums, go to Facebook, leave a comment on YouTube, and I will see you guys in the next video.